Welcome, everyone. I'm happy to see everybody, even though the revolution happening outside. So that's really nice. This week we have our Trendslab. I'm happy to introduce Marta Marin and Carla Montaner. You will have some classes with them along the semester, and we will have them in these and other events along the year. This week is especially dedicated to deglobalization. With the Trendslab, we have been working on the relevant trends that are shaping our world. And last year we worked with retrogression trend. And we have noticed that retrogression and deglobalization are connecting more and more. So that's an interesting fact. We have a Twitter account at Trend Studies, which is a permanent Twitter account. So that there you can follow anything if you're interested in trends and authors and events happening around the world. We are sharing lots of stuff there. And we have two hashtags, one for the event in general, which is Trendslab19 that we've been using since 2014. So you may find things online there. And also for each year, we have one specific hashtag. And this year, of course, is Trendslab19, like 2019. So I want to introduce the program for this week. Probably all of you have seen the program already, but I wanted to go through it very quickly. So we have sessions here at Elizaba from Monday to Friday from 5 p.m., officially from 5 p.m., right? If you notice, there is a space marked in blue, which are morning activities. The week is very intensive, and from day one, you will need to start working in your teams and having lots of conversation and having lots of work done outside the sessions. So it's important that you can use your time at your convenience. You can use the premises of a school for meetings or whatever you need. And also at 5, which is 17 hours, each day you will find on the screen which room we will be working at. Most of the days we will be working at room 215 and 216. We have two big rooms together, so you can use a big space. I understand that on Thursday, we won't be in 215. We will be somewhere else that still they need to confirm to us. So, and one special thing is that we will have, I will go through these and then go back. Moma and Osvaldo, they might be telling you all that you need to book your place for Playing the Future. Playing the Future is a trend watching game developed by the Design Thinking Center in Moscow. They will be with us. Eugenia and Maria, they will be with us. They are trying to arrive from Moscow today. And they will be at some point here if the traffic allows it. And they will be holding sessions on Wednesday and Thursday. This is a game that the Design Thinking Center in Moscow has designed, and is like a playful way to work with trends and to understand trends. So that will happen in Wednesday and Thursday from 4 to 5 p.m. So 1 hour before our sessions. And that's pretty much it. So for today, we will have an experts panel with Marta and Carla. We were expecting to have Uriol, that some of you already met, from the Metropolitan Strategic Plan of Barcelona. But again, he's coming from London because he was doing things there, so he might be somewhere in the airport or in a taxi or we don't know where. So he might not arrive today, but the three of us will take the panel and we'll approach the globalization and gentrification as two important trends happening these days. After we do the panel, we will do the concepts. I'll give you an index for the panel. We will give you the concepts, we will give you sources, we will give you where it comes from, where can you find more information. Then we will have open a Q&A session. So it is important that you can take notes during the panel and make all the questions about this topic. It's a very important trend that is probably going to change the economic landscape of the planet. So it may change lots of the things that you will be doing in the next 5 years. So Q&A is going to happen hopefully between 6 and 7, or as much as we want. At 7, we will need to go for a coffee desperately, and then we will go into room 215, right? So we have 2 hours for assimilating the concept, understanding the trend, knowing where it comes from, where it may go, right? And how it will affect the projects that you are developing, the companies that you are working with. And then the Q&A is open for you to, or for everybody to discuss how these may happen in the present and in the future, okay? After the coffee break, at room 215, we will be having an introduction to the Trendslab methodology, which is a methodology we are developing right here at Elizaba, this very program. I will do that, and then we will provide you with a toolkit that is like on the entrance, which is a toolkit for the week and for anything you want to do with trends. It's not a game, it's not as fun as a game, but it's very useful. That kit is very useful for understanding context, market, trends, and tribes. And after that, we will do a short session on how to capture signals and patterns. And that's when the work starts. So the whole week, you're going to be working with this methodology that we will give you today. Each day, you will have capsules, like some keynotes on how to use the methodology, and it will be compressed in the week. You can, of course, use it afterwards with projects as long as they need. And today we start with it. We recommend that tomorrow, if you have the time during the day or in the morning, I know some people work, some people may not have time, you try to collect signals and trends and signals and patterns, which is the main source of information that you're going to use for the rest of the week. And tomorrow, on Tuesday, is that me? Tomorrow on Tuesday, yeah, we will have one team download. We call team download when you come with research material and you can download it in a canvas and make sense of the information that you have collected. That's going to be for 1 hour. Then we will have 1 hour of a masterclass on gentrification from David Bravo. David Bravo has been working with the PEM and with the CCCB, the Center for Contemporary Culture in Barcelona. He's an architect, and he will be showing risk and opportunities on gentrification. During the week, you will discover that the globalization is a global trend that is affecting the world, the whole planet. And then it reflects on gentrification, which is happening locally in every different city. Then, let me get my glasses. We will start again with the methodology. You will do a backcasting exercise. work with the patterns and discover cycles, which is part of a methodology. Coffee break, you will start working with people, right, to understand the segmentation, the tribes, the communities that might be involved in the project and how they are affected by the globalization and gentrification. Carla and I will do that session. So it's about understanding which are the drivers, which are the insights that you can get from the information you collected, and which are the main tribes and personas that may be related for your specific project. After that, Maria Alejandra Garcia, who works with us at DTG, and myself, we will help you map the first set of trends that you will be able to identify in relation to the project that you're doing and in relation to the globalization and gentrification. That's pretty much the first 2 days. Wednesday is play day at 4. Then we have Nelson Piñeiro. Nelson, some of you know him. He runs the Trends program at the University of Lisbon. We have these strong exchange with the University of Lisbon. After he introduces to narratives and storytelling, we will have a webinar. Unfortunately, Luke could not make it to travel because he has other commitments as well, and it was difficult to arrange that. We will have a webinar on room 215 with Luke Sturgeon. He works on future casting, which is a very interesting technique for projecting trends into the future. Now, you have done a trends mapping on the day before, so if you notice, you will have some material to forecast, to project into the future. He will show us a couple of methods, and he will be available for questions. So we will have from 5:30 to 7 a long session with Luke. Then we go for a coffee break, and then we have Jordi Del Pino. Jordi Del Pino runs an organization that is focused in possible futures. So his work is to translate trends into future scenarios, into strategies. So he will show you how to do that, and the idea is that you can apply that to your projects, or you can apply that to your initiatives. So from the current trends that we are looking at today, you can project on future scenarios and make decisions or advise your client. Then, almost finished. Then from there, as we will have some scenarios for the future, we will start ideating on solutions, potential first solutions to the challenge that you have with your own project or with your client. Then examine which of these ideas may be feasible, which of these ideas may look good according to those scenarios, those trends that we have identified. And then on Thursday, we have another play session. And then after that, with that ideation, with those ideas, you may build a strategy for your project or your client. So you can start putting the pieces together to create a strategy. Strategy that is not just in the present, but projected in the future. You will define the lapse of time, 5 years, 1 year, 3 years, as you decide, or as you speak in your teams or with your clients. One important thing that Jordi will be back with us and making emphasis on how these strategies need to consider the cultural context and how they need to adapt in context. Depending on where you are, you need to adapt those strategies to the different cultures or the different types of social environments that you may have. We'll see if we have time, and if that goes really well, we have a scheduled business model session. So if the strategy is ready, we can go into the business model. If the strategy is not ready, and then we can go into just making a planning calendarization of the strategy so it can be executed. With this, you can go back to your project or back to your client and have a conversation to realize if this is possible or not, and then shape it again. Basically, that's going to be Thursday. After that, and this is very interesting, we will bring testing methods for the strategies. So you can create a strategy, but definitely you need to test it before running it. So we will look at testing methods so you can make a proof of concept during the morning of Friday or during some time on Friday, and you can have an idea about how people see the strategy or what people think about the strategy you're about to implement. If you need to change it, if people just don't connect with it or don't realize it, then it can get into art redesign, or you can just confirm it. It's a form of validation with interviews with people on the street. That's pretty much it. After that, you will make a presentation. You will have time to work on a presentation. You will pitch that presentation, and you will get feedback, right? And we will do the feedback session here on this auditorium again. We will be transmitting it, so those clients that are not here in Barcelona can watch it and can connect with the projects, and they can later on have a meeting and have a conversation or talk about it, etc., etc. And for those who follow us, normally there's people who follow us on social media. They also are interested in listening about the outcomes of the whole week. And we do the same thing with the Design Thinking Week and the Service Design Week. So then there is a lot of activity on social media. You can get more feedback from people. All right, so at the end, if everything goes well, we should have some Trendslab drinks or dinner or something, which is up to everybody. That's gonna be the week. So again, I encourage you to get book your, if you prefer, Wednesday or Thursday for playing the game. We are really happy to have them here, and we are really happy that these type of tool can be used for something as complex as trend watching and trend researching. So we are. This is the index for the panel. So basically, what we're going to do now is introduce the topic. But before introducing the globalization, we will talk about globalization. So we will go in the context of deglobalization. We will just go through concept origins and some impact. We've been living in globalization for some years already, and there is some results, some impact. So we will talk about that. Then we will get into the topic of deglobalization. And of course, we will go into explaining the concept, its origins, how different thinkers from different areas of knowledge, schools are approaching it, and how gentrification is one strong signal of deglobalization, and how if you just go out on the street, you can start noticing things. Then we found this author, which is a very interesting thinker from the Philippines. Is Walden Bello. He created an organization called the Global South, and which is very propositive in how to turn the effects of globalization into something positive for the future. So we will examine a little bit of what Walden Bello proposes, and then we will go through 14 principles for trying to make globalization a positive deglobalization in the near future. Okay. that's pretty much what we're going to do in the next half an hour or so. We'll see. So we'll give it a start. So when we talk about, you want to start? Or do you want to start?
First, the idea of globalization. I think it's an idea that we all have in mind, a paradigm that we are under it for a long. But all of us have clear that it's referring to integration. No? We are talking about the integration, economic, social, and political integration. But also, we have to take into mind that when we talk about globalization, we are emphasizing in the idea of economic globalization and globalization that has behind the logic of the corporate profitability. So it's a type of globalization we are talking for. It's not a general globalization, but it's the globalization that it's kind of addressed by the logics of the capital. Okay? So in that sense, what we find is this globalization is not that globalization as such because it generates inequality. That's one first aspect that we want to refer. No? So this idea of this globalization is living apart part of the global population. These are some of the signs that that we can see right now in globalization. No? Trade to GPA rates are increasing in the most countries. These are facts that are showing us different aspects of globalizations. We have the expansion of financial capital flows between countries. This is something we all recognize. We have foreign direct investment and cross borders. Of course, the rising number of global brands. When we also think about globalization, we are thinking in global brands like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, no? All these brands that we've seen that have arrived and landed in everywhere, no? As global brands that have created globalization in all countries, north and south. We also, when we see aspects of globalizations, we see the specialization in labor. We see global supply chains and we see a global trade. And we see, of course, the globalization of the people in terms of the migration flows that we have been living in the past years, and now that we are in this important moment of crisis in the immigration situation, but it's this global movement of people around, and the increasing connectivity, the globalization. When we think of globalization, we also think in the connection of the world. Total connection with the nets, with the technology, etc., with all these networks. So these are key aspects in globalization. Now we have a video that it's interesting that you see that it starts showing the idea of globalization, but start also showing us how this is changing and preparing us to see that we are entering in this new era of the globalization that maybe we are referring to as deglobalization. So let's see the video.
Donald Trump seems determined to tear apart the global economy. Not content with a physical wall on the Mexican border, he is putting up tariff walls on metals, on goods from China, and perhaps even on cars from Europe. People fear this marks the end of globalization and the return of closed national economies. The last time that happened, it ended in a world war. Since 1945, peace and prosperity has rested on American shoulders. What then if America shrugs off the burden of leadership? Maybe less than you fear. For the US role in the international economy, while still great, is not as dominant as it used to be. Others have risen. Europe is now a single economic bloc. Japan and China have grown large, and none will take Trump's protectionism lying down. They have benefited from economic openness, and they know it. So they are doubling down on trade liberalization, deepening ties between each other, and working out what to do if the US sabotages world trade rules. Japan and the EU have signed the biggest trade deal in history, covering 1/3 of the world economy. That's enough to put even the US in the shade. Compared with any other national economy, America is much bigger. Trump understands this. It's why he wants bilateral deals. But put the rest of the world together, and the US falls short. So more globalization is a shield for the countries that still believe in it. Lower barriers between themselves makes them less dependent on US trade. It is also a weapon. It hurts those American producers and consumers who remain behind trade barriers. So is this the end? It may be the end of America's dominance in the world economy, but it may also be the start of a new era of globalization for the rest of the world.
Okay, this is a video from Financial Times, and it's globalization seen 20 years after, right? So we started with the topic of globalization in the late 70s, early 80s, and at this point we are looking at some effects. The main effects is a process of de-equalization. So that means that global differences between the rich and the poor have gone even deeper. And that we can see every day, actually, with everything, right? And with the situation that we have in politics and government around the world, we know that the effect of the global market is diverse, meaning that it has benefits, but of course has also created a lot of challenges. And these challenges are the ones that are affecting industries, are affecting society, and are affecting communities at large in general, right? One important thing is that more and more the effect has a very big impact in people and the environment. This is the most important thing, right? We have here some key facts related with globalization and inequality, and we have some numbers. So it says that the difference between the rich and the poor has gone like deeper. The 20% of the population get most of the wealth of the world, and is global markets that have created this somehow. So in the scenario of a global market, competition by corporations and big companies that have the possibility to improve their offer into the market, delocalizing their processes and making their production processes cheaper, has gone to the extreme. Many of the bigger companies have left the original countries where they come from, the United States, UK, Germany. Many of the industrial production has gone into Asian countries where cost and labor is cheaper. So this enables the possibility of offering cheaper products and cheaper and wider access to products around the world, and also the possibility to reach new markets, like reaching the middle class in more countries, creating a more dynamic market in countries where the market was still very local or not too developed. So there is one important side of the trade, that is that it activates the local markets, it activates economy in around the world. But when delocalizing, it leaves behind these people without jobs in their original countries, like the USA. I don't know if you have heard about the how Detroit, that was manufacturing cars for so many years, that had many factories. They were giving jobs to a lot of people. They moved, and the city ended up bankrupt at some point. So that's one effect in the home of a company. But then when these companies go to the new locations where they can do their production, the conditions for workers and the conditions for the manufacturing change. So they are not offering the same conditions to the local workers, because they do need to develop efficiency in terms of cost of production. So there is an effect, like this very strong effect in both sides, the rich country and the country where the industry is relocated. That has a lot of consequences. Then another important thing relates to the environment. So pollution and contamination is not only now happening in industrialized countries like the water, the air, but spread all around the world, especially in those countries where regulation to these activities that pollute, industrial activities that may pollute, are flexible or are less strict than in Europe or the United States. So somehow, in the process of creating cheaper products and a cheaper offer for making the market bigger, the capacity of taking care of people and also the environment has been lost. One important thing is also the how the financial capital moves. That means how money flows around the world. So investment happens in the new countries around the world. The money flows into the new markets, but also the money flows into the big corporations and actually the ones that generated that capital. One key element in the inequality is that, especially in the underdeveloped countries or countries in low income areas, is that they have markets that are more fragile. That means that people don't have the capacity for acquisition of goods, and they also have ineffective programs to fight poverty. So when the big multinationals and the market stretches in countries where are not prepared to receive this type of investment or this type of market dynamics, all the efforts to fight poverty are even less effective. So the market ends up ruling in the new creation of a market. We can see many different places where the black market grows because people just don't have the possibility of accessing prices at regular prices, at normal prices in shops. So this is one big effect, especially in countries where inequality grows. Not only economic inequality, but social inequality grows a lot. One important thing about this dynamic in the market is that behind the dynamic, behind the action of a companies, we have the execution of a neoliberalism. Neoliberalism believes in the free market, believes in the market as a social ruler. So it means that whoever has the resources will be able to live comfortably in the market, but the market rules. So it's not the government that rules, but the dynamics of the market rule the social relationships that happen in that context. So in the most of the countries that you can see blue, neoliberalism has been popular for more than 30 years and has become a standard. Has become a standard not only in terms of politics, but in terms of business. And it's among these line of thought that the companies have operated globalization around the world. So one important thing to understand is that the capital has been present around the world, yes, but in an execution from a neoliberal point of view. I don't know if this is clear. One of the main intentions of globalization was to somehow provide access to the world, to knowledge, resources, products, and services. But it hasn't gone as planned. Yeah. So somehow here are some signals that this process, I don't want to say has failed, like the idea of having a global market where anybody could access anything, where anybody could move, from country to country, where people could have access to knowledge, products, services, has failed is, first of all, the financial crisis from 2008. That financial crisis happens because of a speculative financial capital that you all probably have heard about. The concentration of capital, that means the concentration of wealth and money in less than 1% of the population of the world. And also political manifestations, as we talked before. Neoliberalism is more popular in the right-wing sectors of society than in the left-wing sectors of society. And right-wing has been, let's say, running the businesses and the processes of globalization. So somehow these political manifestations also allow the parties, these right-wing parties, to connect around the world. At one level in politics and another level in business. So it becomes a double deal, right? Then there is a very strong change in the way countries are protecting their economies. Many of them, like the United States, are imposing taxes to foreign products, for example, because they have production, but they also have a market. And as globalization has created this social situation where people have lost jobs, are not able to pay for their homes, they need to reverse this, protecting their production and creating more industries and jobs locally. So there are different ways of protectionism. You can protect the country by raising taxes to foreign products and services, but you can also stop allowing foreign people to get in. You can do things like Brexit, for example, which is protecting the British economy, etc., etc. This creates, let's say, a slower flow of capital. So investors are not thinking globally, and they are not thinking about developing ventures or developing projects around the world, but they stay in the safe area that they can, where their interest is guaranteed, of course, and where they can be protected, under the same legislation that the country offers. Then there are new barriers in the flow of people, like what is happening with Brexit, like what is happening with all the refugee movements around the world, with the different worlds. The raising inequality that we already talked about. But also there is, and this is a very strong signal for all of you, the growth of local companies or of local or regional multinationals, companies and groups of companies that with globalization were able to grow, were able to get stronger, and they are dealing in regions like, For example, in Latin America, there are now a lot of multi-Latinas, which are multinational companies that didn't exist before the era of globalization. Or other, hello, or other initiatives in science, in entrepreneurship, in startups and technology that now we see are happening very strongly in places like India, Philippines, Africa, right? With the investment of other, I will finish soon. With the investment of foreign capital. So this is one example, which is that I wanted to bring. Places like Rwanda are working on creating their own solutions locally, right? So markets and regional initiatives are not anymore expecting Kawasaki or global brands to bring solutions to their needs or to bring new ideas to whatever they need to do. But people with the knowledge that acquire in the years of globalization are being able to create their own solutions and their own products and services. So this is a very interesting thing that it's happening not only in Africa, but in all those countries that now have the know-how to produce whatever, from textile to technology to motorcycles, and that knowledge has spread around the world with the delocalization of factories and the delocalization of resources and companies. So this means that globalization has parallel sides and has parallel effects that are positive and negative at the same time. So we have things like this, the empowerment of people fighting for civil rights, for example, the empowerment of entrepreneurs developing great ideas anywhere in the world and being able to connect globally through digital networks is also one very important thing. This is another interesting local effect, which is gentrification. We explore a little bit of gentrification, and with deglobalization, local capitals need to get stronger, and a lot of the money that was used to be invested in other countries, in foreign countries, come back to the country. So we now have money that is coming back to the initial countries that were investing abroad. And then we have companies and investors, local investors in the southern countries or underdeveloped countries that now have big companies or have, let's say, more access to capital. That money is being invested in cities. That money is being invested in real estate. That money is being invested in the local economy. One, because of a protectionism that we talked about before, and the special conditions that they may receive if they bring back their money into any country. And second, because the regulation helps to improve, let's say, areas of the city or even territory around the cities that has problems. For example, we can see here, this is in Brooklyn, and we can see that areas of the city that are cheap, where real estate cost is lower, can be easily acquired by local capital that now has access to money, right? So it's easy to buy complete neighborhoods or squares and invest in them and make them more livable, make them more nicer, and raise the local price of the real estate. So it's a very good investment. This is happening all around the world, not only in Brooklyn, but it's happening in every city in Asia, every city in Africa, every city in Latin America. They are developing Sohos, which is, that's how Soho started. So it's happening anywhere you go. There is a neighborhood that was industrial or that was popular neighborhood. that local investors have bought and then improved. So this is also an interesting effect of how the return of capitals is going into impacting socially, not only in a negative way, but raising opportunities and risk. When we talk about the globalization, and as when we talk about any trend, we're always talking about opportunities and risks. So both things happen at the same time. So why all this happens? We have gone through this. This is just like a recap of what we have talked before. But basically there are 3 points. The globalization happens because the unequal distribution of benefits of globalization. So there some countries benefited a lot. Some countries have been impacted deeply. The increase in the demand of protectionist measures. Because of the inequality, many countries have taken measures to balance, right? This has created the trade wars that we're living today globally. National job protection, so there are benefits for the locals. Security protection, immigration protection, like we have in the United States, Europe, et cetera, and also the return of a capital to where they were initially. Another effect is the rise of populist leaders. This means that leaders that are promising a better future as it used to be before are now being more popular than ever. I don't really want to comment on that. But this is like a recap of what we've done before. Carla will continue introducing Walden Bello.
I will come back to this one because one thing we wanted to show is this could be what we've seen, a reaction of a way to face globalization. This deglobalization can take two aspects. No, we've seen the aspect of kind of go back, no, protect your nation, protect your things, close, no, retrogress somehow. We had that trend last year, and it's a reaction to globalization. It's a say, okay, this is not interesting for me. It's not working. I'm going back, and I'm retrogressing, but there is another way of defining deglobalization, which is more constructive, which is more not that much about defensive, but more progressive. And yes, I found this author, this sociologist, Walden Bello, as Jorge mentioned. He's from the Philippines. He found this foundation. It's focused on the global south that promotes and defends all the tries to reinforce the relevance of the south in front of the north, and so trying to fight the corporate driven globalization and try to give tools to the south to go better. But it's especially interesting, this author, because he was the one that defined the concept deglobalization, and that was already 10 years ago or so. And with this idea of trying to find an alternative, we can place him under the umbrella of the anti-globalization movements or anti-globalization, movements or ideas. And he wrote this book that defined himself, deglobalization's ideas for this new world economy. So in a way, he was making back then a proposition of an alternative to globalization. And this alternative to globalization, it's the idea of not basing globalizations in capital, but in people and in values, etc. So it's something that probably resonates to you because it's it's a trend that's going on now, no? But in a way, he defined in a different way globalization, to start defining the globalization, his point of view about the globalization. And he said that we were in a first phase of globalization during the industrialization era. That was one phase of globalization. And then that we had another phase of globalization from the 80s till today, which is the moment of the fall of the wall, the starting of the free trade and all the globalization paradigm somehow started then. And in between, there was this period which was marked by the two world wars and the Cold War. And in that period, he mentioned the dominance of the national capitalism economies. At that moment, there was a significant degree in the state intervention and an international economy with strong constraints. But this is kind of the frame of reference where he kind of situate us to start with his proposal. So how is he and his movement defining the globalization? It's a way to strengthen local and national economies. So it's the idea of, okay, let's not talk about this inequality, let's not talk about this hegemony of specific countries, and give strength to the local things. And also, he defined it as a process of restructuring the world economic and political system. So in that sense, means to give an alternative to the system. Globalization as a system can have an alternative, and he proposed to restructure it and change this system to another one. This is a sign that can show us how the South gets power and gets empowerment. This is a good sign that Jorge found that shows that Rwanda launches this satellite to provide internet to rural schools. So how the South, as he mentioned before, is creating already initiatives that are having its own power and its own strength, and having and being important, no, in the whole map. So the idea that he wanted to bring was that the globalization is not about withdrawing from the world economy. It's not about changing completely in terms of creating an alternative, completely different system. No, it's about changing the focus or the view. No, let's not focus that much in the capital and focus more in the persons, the people, the needs, no, the values. So it's restructuring in order to give strength to these local and national economies instead of using them as a resource to the global economy. This is an interesting video that we also found from the chief economist of the Commerce Bank in Germany that also explains this idea of regionalization rather than globalization.
This is, keep in mind that this is the point of view of a banker, right? So this is how he sees it.
Ladies and gentlemen, US President Trump is trying to disrupt China's foreign trade with tariffs. He wants to prevent China from becoming a world power and from overshadowing the United States at some point. Trade between China and the US has already collapsed. In the last 3 months, China has imported a fifth less from the US than in the same period last year. The new East-West conflict is accelerating a trend towards deglobalization that began 10 years ago after the great financial crisis. At that time, crisis-hit companies had become more cautious and began to shorten their global value chains. Even in Germany, many people protested against the TTIP free trade agreement. Since then, world trade has been growing more slowly than global GDP. technological innovations could prolong this deglobalization trend in the future. In the coming years, 3D printing will increasingly make it possible to produce directly at the customer site instead of sending goods across national borders. While globalization is being pushed back, a contrary trend is emerging. For some years now, regional trade has been intensifying in Europe, North America and Asia. The respective leading powers can more easily impose their rules on smaller countries in their zones of influence. There are now more than 300 regional trade agreements. Regionalization instead of globalization, this could be the future of world trade. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, very German, but very clear in that sense that the importance of the region. Together with the movement or the view of the progressive movements, when we define the globalization, we also find this example. Joseph Stiglitz is the Economy Nobel Prize, also a scholar in U.S. University in Berkeley, I think. But anyway, he also many schools are redefining and thinking about the situation now in globalization and new era we are coming. And he wrote this book, Globalization and its Discontents, where in a way it's referring to again, this idea of that we should redefine globalization, leaving apart the idea of taking care of the transnational corporations, putting corporations in the middle, and instead thinking about globalization in terms of integrate the world around the needs of the peoples, the nations, and the communities. So this point of view of the globalization is coming from the South, and it's also coming from critics, intellectuals from the North, as the case of the Economic Prize, Nobel Prize. At the end, what the globalization, it's questioning is it's this way of integrating, the way that globalization integrate. So by the logic of the capital, they are saying, okay, this is not the way. We should have another type of globalization or deglobalization. So again, coming back with our Walden Bello sociologist, he said what it means. It's starting to think and build an integration process based on the needs of people, nation, community, and ecosystems. So that's the point of view he's offering us. No? It's not opposing trade nor exchange or products or services, but proposes that this trade is not done to the expenses of the communities, but for the communities. So again, giving importance and reinforcing the local and national economies and the diversity of products. And also, what he says is the idea that we are seeing as well that the social, the civil society, the people should be more involved in exchanging decisions making with other organizations. So in fact, we are also changing a system where there are states or very official institutions ruling to a one that it's more plural, more horizontal, where different players are taking are taking care of the whole play. We again, some of you can recall the liquidity society we are with Bauman. We are in a more fluid, less structured, and overall more pluralistic world, no? Where the nations and the communities, in this case of the South, will be able to carve out the space to develop, and especially based on the values, the rhythm, and the strategies on their choice. So this is this new point of view of seeing globalization in another way, which he referred to as deglobalization, but we can also refer to as an alter globalization, or the South, or the plural globalization. This is another video that also can illustrate what we are talking.
Yeah, this is an approach from the investor point of view, not the bank, but the investors, and how some stakeholders in the process have been benefiting in a different way to others.
Across the world, protectionism is on the rise, and that's why global trade as a share of GDP, there's a backlash.
So why is protectionism on the rise?
Well, it's a backlash, as this graph shows, that because there's massive increase in globalization, there are some people who have not benefited from this massive increase in globalization, and when a pendulum swings too aggressively in one way, you do get some sort of swing back because of the backlash, because some people think that they have been left out of this big sort of boom which has taken place. So that backlash has been going on ever since the global financial crisis hit us in 2008. It's been happening in sort of salami slice sort of cuts. So therefore we have seen this retreat, that everyone is raising tariff barriers, non-tariff barriers as well. But the key thing here is that there are some countries who are in fact benefiting from this trade war which is taking place between US and China, and that's what I find really fascinating. Well, it's been a lost decade for Indian exports, really, in terms of how how poorly Indian exports have done, and it's just sort of sad that we're not ever able to benefit from these shifts which take place in the manufacturing landscape. But I find this like what's going on is pretty interesting, and it's an opportunity if someone wants to capitalize on it, which some countries are. That if you speak to the average American company today, what they are telling you is that in the olden days, or by olden I mean like a decade ago, if you wanted to set up 3 factories, we would possibly do it in China. Today, if you want to set up 3 factories, we will sort of think of spreading our risks because of the US-China trade tension that's taking place. So maybe we'll put 1 factory in China, but maybe 1 in Vietnam, or maybe 1 in Indonesia or Malaysia. So some of these Southeast Asian countries in particular are like benefiting from this, at least in terms of taking up
investments which are not showing up here, and which will show hugely in the future, maybe 2, 3, 4 years from now.
Yeah, but this is exactly. So this is all symptomatic of the same trend, which is the fact that China, in terms of from being this big global export powerhouse, is seeing its export momentum slow down, its sort of market share drop in some key categories, and there are other countries which are stepping in to fill in that void.
That was the point of view of an investor, like how decisions are changing and how the effects also make the investors move in different ways. This is how people down in the street take options for local initiatives. For example, these are considering the effects that people know that industrial production has had on the environment. In Philippines, all the vendors of this fruit, they have decided they will not use plastic anymore. And these are the kind of initiatives that are being transformative. When people in the base of a pyramid, in the very, very base of a pyramid, take decisions and start implementing initiatives. This is very important because this is spreading around the world, well, first in Philippines and then around the world. So people locally are finding options to plastic and finding out that they have had the means for developing these options for many years. There is two sides of this. The possibility of international connection and international flow of information and knowledge allows people to know this is happening in Philippines, right? But the solutions are still local. So probably in Africa, they will do it with the same intention in a different way, with a different material. In South America, they will do it in a different way, with a different material. But they share the same purpose. So it's very important that it's not standardized, that the initiatives are being, let's say, improved in a local way, but the objectives and the concerns are global. So this is another interesting approach to how people with very small initiatives locally that are spread around the world are changing the world, and it's another way of deglobalizing.
And this is the example of the social movements that are somehow also fighting or trying to find different ways to live in the system, no? And as Jorge mentioned also, they are, in this sense, gathering together through the nets, mainly. Many of these movements, as you've seen, are creating through the social media, and they are global, but also coming from local initiatives, no, or let's say local problems, but that they are global. No? Here we have the Occupy Wall Street, which was a movement during as a reaction of the financial crisis, and one movement to anti-globalization. Also, other movements like the Future for Change, the climate change, or initiatives like the Me Too that we all hear about the woman trying to find gender equality. But in any case, all these social movements are also signs and actions that are deconstructing the way globalization was understood up to now, and trying to explore new possibilities to strengthen this new way of seeing the world. Before
going into the principles, I would really like to add that this is an effect of globalization as well, having the connection, the immediate interconnection between countries in the world, to be able to have movements like Me Too that very rapidly spread. That is an effect of globalization. Without globalization, we wouldn't be able to create these movements, right? So it's interesting how the same, let's say the same globalization effect has a double sword. It's a double sword, right? It's like it enables things that are damaging, but also enables people who are trying to change. And that's why we have tried to present to you both options, right? Both sides of it, the point of view of an investor, of an activist, of a local community. So you can think about it not just as something that big corporations do around the world, having shops everywhere in the world, same shops around the country, or dominating the markets, but also other things that are happening at a local level that are interconnecting globally silently, no? That they are happening in a very silent way, but having an interesting impact in people's mind. The Occupy Wall Street, it's something that spread around the world, like dynamite. It was very much engraved in people's minds. And today, people around the world create ways of protest, protesting and demonstrating things, because we have seen them every day in social media. We have had access to things that are happening around the world. The other day we were talking about Ecuador and the things that are happening there as well. They are motivating things in the rest of the continent, and they are connected to the protests in China. So it's very interesting how globalization has this effect as well. So now, going to the principles.
Just to add to what you mentioned, the interesting thing is all these movements are created thanks to globalization, but they are searching for a new way of understanding globalization. So they are sons and at the same time fathers of what is coming, no? So that's interesting as a link. Well, to end up, we wanted to close this presentation, with We close with Marta, but we close this part. Yeah, of course, Marta has a very practical examples that will help you a lot. But again, Walden Bello also defined at that time already when he wrote his book these 14 deglobalization principles that in order to start changing things should be followed. And well, the first one is the production for the domestic market rather than production for exports market. That's the first thing that we already heard about, giving relevance to local economies and domestic markets. The principle of subsidiarity that should be enshrined in economic life by encouraging production of goods at the level of the community. So again, giving relevance to the community and national level. In the same line, protecting local economy, meaning defining a trade policy that should be used to protect the local economy. Industrial policy that should be used to revitalize the strength and the manufacturing sector. And also try to bring up measures for equitable income redistributions and land redistributions. Of course, de-emphasizing growth, but emphasizing or upgrading quality of life. So at the end is, again, trying to make a balance between the development and the growth and the quality of life of the people. He defined also the idea of transportation systems to be transferred into decentralized systems based on renewable sources. So at that time, he was already referring to this alternative in resources. Of course, this healthy balance must be maintained between the country's carrying capacity and the size of the population. The idea of being environmentally congenial technology that must be developed and diffused in both agriculture and industry. So, okay, use the technology to be more environmentally friendly with the agriculture and industry. And of course, this idea of a gender lens already at that moment talk about the gender equity as a principle for this new way of thinking of deglobalization. Also, the strategic economic decisions must be not left to the market. As we mentioned before, we don't want the market to be the one ruling the whole thing, but other players also taking care of it, and also the civil society, as we mentioned, to be more active in terms of supervising what the private sector does, and also the idea of transforming the economy into a mixed economy that includes community cooperatives, private enterprises, state enterprises, and that excludes somehow these transnational corporations. And finally, try to decentralize somehow, instead of having centralized global institutions, replace them by regional institutions built not on free trade or capital mobility, but the principles of the corporations and putting the human needs in the centers. Well, this is we wanted to place them because I think we could all see signs and patterns referring to this later on when we start researching, and also and also during this week with all the work we want to do. And so to end up with this part, the idea of that when we are talking about the globalization, we are talking to a new vision of progressive social transformation. So the idea somehow of defining a new paradigm that emphasizes the people alternatives to build better lives, economies, and environments. So replace somehow the capital as the center and put the human being in the center. And now Marta, she's going to introduce us some concrete examples that kind of show many of the things we just explained in a more conceptual way. He's gonna explain it in Spanish, but if there is anything that it's not clear, we can talk about it.
The slides are in English for those who don't speak Spanish. So.
Pues hola, buenas tardes. Perdón, pero yo lo haré en castellano. Hablo muy rápido y si lo tuviera que hacer en inglés no me entendería nadie. Lo vamos a hacer como un recopilatorio de lo que han estado diciendo Jorge y Carla. Intentaremos luego bajarlo a 5 o 6 ejemplos de marcas que están trabajando con este concepto que va o oscila entre la globalización y la desglobalización. Entonces, lo que hemos hecho para empezar ha sido sobre todo colocar esta macrotendencia de la desglobalización dentro de un contexto que es clave. No se entiende la macrotendencia si no hacemos previamente un análisis de contexto. Tenemos que saber qué es aquello que está pasando a nivel político, económico, social, cultural para entender esta macrotendencia. Entonces, bueno, nos lo han contado muy bien ellos. No sé si os acordáis de esta pequeña pieza que dura unos segundos, que es lo que hizo o nos lanzó Pantone cuando quiso decirnos cuáles eran los colores de aquellos años en los que la crisis parecía tener fin y nunca llegaba a tener fin. La crisis empezó en noviembre de 2008 y las crisis económicas y políticas a nivel histórico siempre han tenido como un ciclo de vida muy pequeño. Pero esta está durando mucho más de lo que han durado las otras crisis que han habido en el siglo XX y a lo largo de este siglo XXI, que hemos empezado con crisis y no sabemos cuándo va a terminar. Mirad las imágenes y veréis que anuncian en pocos segundos, a través de impactos visuales muy potentes, lo que nos acaban de contar ellos dos. Esto lo lanza una marca que nos presenta pantonarios, cuáles van a ser los colores que van a definir, ¿no?, nuestro año. Y en estos momentos, 2015-2016, Pantone se atrevía a lanzar estas imágenes completamente desdibujadas, con una música completamente alterada, sincopada, rota, para decirnos que por primera vez en la historia iban a lanzar no solo un color, sino dos, y que nos iban a proporcionar un toque de tranquilidad. Y no sé si os acordáis, pero lanzaron un color que era un rosa cuarzo para tranquilizarnos y otro color también muy tranquilizador que tenía que ver, decían ellos, con un azulado al que llamaron serendipity, ¿no?, la sorpresa, pero en un estado latente de un poco de tranquilidad. Mirar otro vídeo, supongo que habéis visto, que son las búsquedas que todos nosotros hacemos en Google día a día, y Google lo que hace es recopilarlas en piezas visuales. Os hemos puesto las de 2017 y 2018 para que veáis la diferencia. ¿Qué es lo que hace una marca global como Google para hablar de lo que está ocurriendo a nuestro alrededor? Con un algoritmo, lo que hace es puntuar todas aquellas búsquedas que hacemos nosotros en el buscador. Era 2017 y mirar la diferencia 2017-2018, que nos va a contar lo mismo, pero de una manera un poco diversa. Tuviéramos que leer estas imágenes de manera muy rápida, porque también nos gustaría que tuvierais tiempo para hacernos alguna pregunta. A nivel político, podríamos intentar enmarcar la desglobalización en este entorno. A nivel político, si tuviésemos que definir la política, yo os he puesto una imagen de las primaveras árabes con estas revueltas que luego dieron lugar, ¿no?, una guerra de Siria que aún permanece entre nosotros, que parece que esto no tenga fin. Y yo, si tuviera que definir un poco lo que ocurre a nivel político, hablaría de tensiones alrededor del mundo. Esto sí que es global. Economía también, si tuviera que buscar una palabra, buscaría inestabilidad. La inestabilidad, pues hace nada, una semana, las bolsas volvieron a bajar y nos dieron otro susto bastante importante, y aunque los políticos nos hagan promesas día sí día también de que esto de la crisis económica se termina por imperativos económicos que ellos tienen, pues seguramente aún estamos aquí en una crisis económica bastante interesante. Y esto nos da, a nivel político y a nivel económico, estas tensiones y estas inestabilidades nos va a dar ciertos desequilibrios a nivel social. Mientras medio mundo sigue siendo cada vez más rico, otro medio sigue siendo cada vez más pobre. Y las desigualdades van cada día más en aumento, aunque parece que en el siglo XXI esto no tendría razón de ser. Y luego, a mí siempre me gusta abrazar un poco el tema de las tendencias a partir del pensamiento. Y en pensamiento, si yo ahora os preguntara cómo nos definimos a todos nosotros, yo os diría que con muchas dudas, ¿no? La duda, para mí, es lo más interesante. Yo a mis estudiantes de 18 años siempre les pregunto si cuando terminen la facultad ellos creen que van a tener un futuro mucho mejor del que han tenido sus padres, un nivel de vida adquisitivo mucho más alto, etcétera. Y todos me dicen que no. Y entonces les digo, bueno, pues ¿en quién tenemos que confiar, chicos? ¿En quién confiamos? Yo siempre digo que los griegos lo tenían muy fácil, que confiaban en los mitos. Luego cambiamos a los mitos por los dioses, y esto también tenía una cierta solidez. Luego cambiamos a los dioses por quién. Vino la Ilustración y nos hizo razonar las cosas, nos dijo que el conocimiento intelectual era muy importante. ¿Y por quién cambiamos a los dioses y Antes la cambiamos, bueno, pero va muy parejo, por los políticos, ¿no? Con aquellas grandes narrativas que acababan en ismos, como los grandes movimientos de vanguardias, el comunismo, el socialismo, y parecía que nos iban a salvar. La gente abandonaba la religión convencional y abrazaba nuevas religiones, ¿no?, pegadas a la política. Bueno, si hoy en día os pregunto en quién confiáis, ¿confiáis en los políticos? pues bastante difícil nos lo están dejando para que confiemos en ellos. Pues ¿en quién podemos confiar? Los de 18 años me contestan súper rápido. En uno mismo. Sí, sí. Pensar que cuando estamos en este periodo, que yo no he querido poner la palabra crisis, pero he puesto tensión, desequilibrio, inestabilidad, dudas, esto lo que genera es que solo podamos confiar en nosotros mismos. Y esto es malo, pero también es muy bueno, ¿no? Tenemos que saber confiar en uno mismo y abrazar a nuestro estilo de vida, a nuestra subcultura, aquellos que parece que son como nosotros, que esto a nivel de tendencias es súper importante, porque todas las generaciones millennials y las nuevas, las Zetas, y ya no digo las Ds y las Is, sobre todo van a confiar en ellos mismos, porque el mundo que les estamos dejando, no sé, yo considero que tengo una parte de culpa, entonces, bueno, hacen que sean eso, unicidades, pero únicos entre sus iguales, como mínimo se abrazan entre ellos. Y luego esto a nivel de expresión nos da mucha fricción, ¿no? ¿Qué es lo que va a ocurrir? Que vamos a vivir en un mundo globalizado donde se impone una macro tendencia que se llama desglobalización. Y aquí vamos a tener que convivir entre todos, porque esto a nivel de lectura nos da como esto es como un resumen de lo que nos han estado contando, este auge de los populismos, ¿no? Este tema de los refugiados con muchas migraciones que parten el corazón, pero parece que a los políticos no. Luego esta escasez de recursos naturales, estamos agotando muchísimos recursos naturales y tenemos un planeta cada vez más contaminado. Ahora parece que no deberíamos haber producido plástico en la vida y parece que ahora todas las marcas están, ¿no?, asumiendo este tipo de rol. No sé si podíamos haberlo pensado antes, seguramente sí. Luego también me interesa que la desglobalización la pensemos dentro de lo que son las revoluciones mediáticas, porque si no, no se entiende, ¿no? Los hashtags, ¿no?, son los que han permitido estas movilizaciones sociales. El tema de las redes sociales aquí es fundamental, si no, no se entiende prácticamente la desglobalización. Y luego también un tema que a mí me da como mucho miedo, pero como soy más mayor, a lo mejor ya no me tocará vivirlo, que es el tema de la biotecnología. O a lo mejor también llego a tiempo y tampoco me muero jamás, como dice el señor Harari, ¿no? Y luego también me interesa muchísimo abrazar esta desglobalización a partir de lo que son las inteligencias artificiales o lo que ahora ya no podemos hablar de realidad aumentada o inteligencia artificial. Ahora los nuevos informes de tendencias hablan todos de mixed realities, ¿no?, estas realidades mixtas en las que estamos todos inmersos. Pues seguramente también. Esto sería como una lectura a título de conclusión o unas consideraciones finales de lo que hemos estado viendo. Aquí se entendería esta macro tendencia del mercado y luego lo hemos bajado a 6 ejemplos como muy fáciles para terminar esta ronda y para que podáis hablar vosotros. Yo os he buscado un ejemplo de Barcelona, un hotel que se llama Casa Bonai, que tampoco está demasiado lejos de aquí. Me parece muy interesante este ejercicio de poder que han hecho 2 chicas muy jóvenes, que deben tener vuestra edad, más que la mía, y que lo que han hecho es apostar por un edificio que ya tenía una historia asociada, recuperar aquella historia y ir a buscar a tejido creativo local para rehacer aquel hotel, para hacer o volver a hacer aquel hotel. Han ido a buscar pues, una persona que trabaja con tejidos, una persona que hace la iluminación. Si os fijáis, no sé si habéis estado en aquel hotel, las puertas, todos los números de las habitaciones están hechos a mano. Han vuelto a recuperar el lettering, que era algo muy pegado a un ADN que era la ciudad de Barcelona. A mí este ejercicio de recuperar tejido local y temas que son más artesanales me parece muy interesante. Y luego que si os fijáis, hacen kilómetro cero, consumo local. Si vais al restaurante te dicen que lo más lejos que van a buscar un producto es al mercado que está en la calle Valencia. O sea, suben 2 calles a comprar los productos. Esto podría ser interesante, puede ser una propuesta. Ya ocurre aquí en la ciudad de Barcelona, abrazada por gente, eso sí, muy joven. Ellas sí que son millennials. Luego, un caso también de desglobalización, pero entendida de manera distinta, me parece muy increíble lo que ocurre en la ciudad de Detroit. Yo no había estado en la vida y este verano fui hasta Detroit. Lo más curioso era la cara de perplejidad de mi marido y de mi hija, que me decían: no entendemos qué hemos venido a buscar o a ver en esta ciudad, y a mí todo lo que veía me parecía muy, muy interesante. Bueno, pues es tan interesante la ciudad porque vives en una especie de realidad mixta, en un gran simulacro. Es una gran mentira que nos están vendiendo un tejido local, pero que a diferencia de Casa Bona y Barcelona, que somos como muy catalanes y abrazamos lo que tenemos aquí, en Detroit abren la ciudad al mundo para llamar a jóvenes creativos. El ayuntamiento lo que hace es cada mes subasta casas a precios de salida que pueden ser $50. Te puedes comprar una casa por $100, $200 y lo que hacen es atraer a gente muy joven que se quiera instalar en la ciudad. Si esto va a ocurrir o no, no lo sé, no lo sabemos, nos encantaría, pero somos incapaces de predecirlo, pero sí que cuando caminas por la ciudad ves a un tejido local creativo muy interesante, aunque es una parte muy pequeña de la población, el 85% sigue siendo gente de raza negra, con unas condiciones deplorables a nivel de vida, y en cambio este 15% que se pasean por la ciudad, que son los creativos, son pues una banda de neo-hipsters que lo tienen un poco más a favor todo, pero sí que están haciendo cosas muy interesantes. A mí me encanta, os he puesto esta imagen de Liza Baut, que es una chica que paseó por la ciudad de Detroit, y así como yo me fui y tuve que volver, ella se quedó. Y esa artista hizo una instalación en una zona muy degradada de la ciudad, intentó poner un poco de vida en aquella zona. Cogió plantas, se fue al ayuntamiento, compró 2 casas por $200 y puso una serie de plantas para dar un poco de vida a aquel barrio completamente degradado. La gente se empezó a animar y ella no tenía dinero para ir alimentando este espacio de plantas y pidió ayuda a gente que la pudiera ayudar, porque lo que veía es que si la gente veía que una de las casas se empezaba a arreglar y había un brote de vida y de color, ¿no? ¿Qué hacía la gente? Ya no ensuciaba tanto las calles, intentaba limpiarlas y lo que vio es que la gente se mimetizaba con ella y esta gente de raza negra que tenía unas condiciones de vida muy difíciles empezó a cultivar huertos urbanos. Ahora la ciudad de Detroit es la ciudad que tiene más huertos urbanos del mundo y creo que ha ayudado a acrecentar un poco su economía. Esto también es chulo, ¿no? Un impacto a nivel de globalización y desglobalización completamente friccionada. Un tema también interesante a nivel de globalización o desglobalización, un caso que tenemos en la ciudad de París, que es un tema de gentrificación, lo que nos da este impacto que vienen compañías transnacionales. Antes Carla decía, tendríamos que apostar, ¿no?, por viviendas que fueran un poco dignas, que estuviera la parte privada, una parte, has dicho, que fuera estatal y una parte que fueran cooperativas. Bueno, pues lo que nos está ocurriendo es que vienen empresas o multinacionales y nos lo están comprando todos. Y Barcelona es una de las ciudades, me parecen, más afectadas a nivel europeo. A la gente de Gracia le están echando de su casa. Pues lo que están haciendo, por ejemplo, en París es que el ayuntamiento está poniendo bastante dinero para que esta gentrificación, como mínimo, tenga una cara mejor lavada, pero también es gentrificación. No sé si habéis paseado por París, había un barrio como muy deteriorado, que era Pigalle, donde estaba la prostitución, pero una prostitución muy decadente. Era como pasear por Pigalle hace 8 años, era casi deplorable, te daba incluso miedo. Y claro, a ellos les interesaba volver a activar la zona del Moulin Rouge y toda la zona de Montmartre. ¿Qué es lo que han hecho? Pues hacer una inversión a nivel de creativos también locales y volver a reabrir todos aquellos espacios vinculados a la sexualidad, pero limpiándoles la cara. Por ejemplo, uno de los grandes activos de este barrio, que ahora le llaman South Pigalle, dices, vaya, pero esto a los de las tendencias nos encanta buscar estos namings. Y este es el Hotel Amour. Me parece una maravilla, porque han hecho toda la comunicación a partir de un elemento expresivo, que son estos focos de color rojo, que eran, ¿no?, los farolillos de las prostitutas, y esto es un antiguo burdel. Un antiguo burdel que, bueno, lo han sanitizado, lo han higienizado, le han puesto este logo fantástico, han hecho una campaña de comunicación, todo de modelos, completamente desnudas en las ventanas, y ahora cuando entras al hotel y te alojas allí, tienes que hacer un check-in y te llevan en un ascensor en el que solo caben 2 personas, porque no han modificado lo que era un prostíbulo convencional. Es divertido, porque en teoría no te puedes encontrar con otros clientes por un tema de privacidad, y cada una de las habitaciones se las han dado a grandes agencias de comunicación, estudios de diseño, plásticos, etcétera. Es una maravilla. Lo que pasa es que antes valía a precio normal, normal para ser un París que para nosotros es caro, pero podrías estar una noche por 300 euros. Ahora, depende de cuándo vayas, ya no baja de 600 y acaban de abrir el segundo en otra zona interesante de la ciudad, que es la del Canal Saint-Martin. Bueno, pero esto sería interesante. También han abierto un local que también es un hotel y tiene 8 habitaciones, y cada una de las habitaciones apela a una de las grandes prostitutas de lujo, las grandes cortesanas del París de Balzac del siglo XIX. También es interesante, ¿no?, revitalizar un país o una parte de París, ¿no?, conservando su esencia con el tema del erotismo, la sensualidad o la sexualidad. Han vuelto a abrir templos de aquellos míticos donde se paseaban Toulouse-Lautrec, etcétera, como Le Baron, etcétera. Todo esto ya está reabierto y ahora, si paseas por esta zona, no se parece en nada a la ciudad que habíamos conocido. Nos dicen que tenemos que ir a prisa. Y solo deciros lo que hacen las marcas. Mirad, esto es un activo de Adidas. Adidas, sabéis que todas las marcas asociadas con sneakers han estado completamente denunciadas por producir en países mal llamados del tercer mundo y con explotación de trabajo infantil. ¿Qué han hecho para limpiar la cara? Pues producir en sus propias ciudades. La primera acción fue esta, de Adidas, no sé si la conocéis, que para generar empatía lo que hizo fue un lab experiencial donde se producían las zapatillas, donde ellos podían poner Made in Berlín y te las hacían en impresión 3D. ¿Qué ha hecho Adidas? Es descontextualizar o deslocalizar esta subcontratación de trabajo mal pagado y llevarlo a distintas ciudades, de manera que tú te puedes hacer con un pedido una zapatilla en 3D y siempre irá con el Made in, pues, asociado a la ciudad que tú has hecho. Lo mismo está haciendo Nike, ¿eh? Nike, desde 2017, todas las campañas de comunicación tienen como objetivo vincularse y generar empatía con público local. Empezaron en Londres porque habían perdido cuota de mercado, hicieron una pieza de Londres que es fantástica, y esto es lo que a mí me sorprendió este verano en Chicago, que es una colaboración aprovechando que Virgin Abloh, el rey Midas de la escena contemporánea, ¿no?, que ha sucedido a Kanye West, que toca, todo aquello que toca lo está convirtiendo en oro, y tenía una exposición en el Museo de Arte Contemporáneo que ha hecho Nike. Ha buscado la oportunidad en una tienda que tiene al lado, se la ha dado a él y han hecho como un ejercicio de reciclaje. Muchísimas zapatillas deportivas, las podías poner en contenedores que estaban repartidos por la ciudad, y han hecho un lab de Nike fantástico con ediciones limitadas, con talleres para creadores locales, y luego todas las paredes cuando tú entrabas eran estas bambas recicladas. Luego cogen todas estas bambas recicladas y lo que hacen a partir de ahora es hacer una cancha de baloncesto en un barrio muy degradado. Esto también es un tema de gentrificaciones asociadas también a esta desglobalización. Y ya para terminar os he puesto un ejercicio que nos permite hacer una lectura distinta de aquellas marcas que siguen siendo muy globales pero que tienen que entrar en mercados estratégicos que no les pertenecen. Y aquí podríamos hablar tanto de un Coca-Cola como de un Pepsi. No sé si habéis estado en Japón, pero la Pepsi en Japón no es de cola. Bueno, a los japoneses no les gusta la cola. ¿Qué hacen estas marcas? Investigan gustos y preferencias de consumidor y lanzan productos asociados a los gustos que ellos les dicen que tienen. Si vais, la Pepsi en Japón es de yogur, de matcha y de... Son horribles, pero bueno, seguramente porque nosotros intentamos beber una Pepsi pensando que tomaremos una Pepsi. Sí, también. Yo hace muchos años ya que no tomo cola, pero la de yogur la probé y la de sandía ya no me atreví. Y la de matcha ya me horrorizaba. Pero mirar qué cosas más chulas que hacen. Nestlé, por ejemplo, ha lanzado cápsulas, pero en vez de lanzarlas de Nespresso o de café, lanza cápsulas de té matcha. Pero además, para empatizar más con el público, tú te haces hacer unas analíticas por parte de tu médico y con las analíticas se las envías a la marca Nestlé. Nestlé Japón, solo. No os animéis que aquí esto aún no nos ha llegado. Y con tus analíticas, imaginar que yo mando las mías y a mí siempre me falta hierro, ferratina y ácido fólico. Ahora me invento. Y entonces me coge la marca Nestlé y ya me introduce la dosis que mi médico le ha dicho que tienen que tener una cápsula de. Es la personalización, el bespoke perfecto para que una marca foránea o percibida como foránea en un mercado que no es el tuyo, de manera natural, pues te permita hacer este tipo de ejercicios. Esto lo han hecho también con KitKat, que es brutal todo lo que han estado haciendo con KitKat, etc. O sea, esto sería como cómo hemos podido bajar a marcas aquello que hemos visto a un nivel muy genérico. Y ya está.
We have a microphone for questions, debate, comments. Any questions?
Reactions, doubts, impressions.
I was just surprised to hear gentrification at first being described as something positive, because in the past I don't know, urbanists, sometimes ideas, they don't believe that it's a positive reaction. So I was wondering what you saw as a positive of gentrification.
Gentrification, like any process, like globalization itself, can impact in a positive or a negative way. For the time being, in the same way that globalization has been driven by the big capital, right? It has had a negative way. But gentrification, and you will see that tomorrow with David Bravo. He will show you like a lot of projects that come from Barcelona City Council, from other cities in the world, where they actually gentrificate areas to fight crime, to improve the level of income on the economy, creating attractive infrastructure, creating attractive local businesses like cafes, and promoting that, for example, students like you can live in areas to, let's say, make them more safe, make them more livable. So there is a whole big visible side of gentrification that we all identify, but there's also another strategic side of gentrification that can become like a tool for social development and for example, improving small businesses that are already in the area. So I just with everything that we have presented, we want you to approach both without a judgment, but as a tool that can be used for whatever, like any tool, right? If you have a knife, you can do lots of things with a knife, and you can kill people, or you can do, I don't know, cook. Right, so that's what David is going to show us tomorrow, because he's been working with the in Barcelona with those, but it has a positive side.
I know deglobalization as a trend is relatively new, as I understand, although
11 years.
Yeah, well, but one thing is when it was created or developed, and another thing is when it's being like applied in a more tangible way. As you talked about globalization, we could see two sides: the benefits and the damage that it has created. Is there already like an identified damage that the globalization has caused as a trend?
I don't know. Let's raise this question, open question for everybody. Can you think about anything that it's negative for instance, if we
radicalization,
the radicalization of this is getting back, no, going back to put borders every.
Yeah, maybe like xenophobia or something.
Uh-huh.
Like that.
So the extreme reaction to globalization could be a negative effect of the globalization. What else?
Extreme protectionism, extreme local
protectionism.
protectionism creates segregation, and that's dangerous as well. So
maybe we can relate to this now, the news of today in Catalonia and these riots happening here. I think it's completely related with deglobalization.
It is.
So I don't know if it's a damaged way to face with this problem, but a huge restructure of the political process, economic, and as we can see, so I think it's a kind of
for sure it's a clear example of that things are getting fragmented and changing, and the system is changing in that sense. And it has, as everything, I guess, positive and negative sides, but it's clear it's a phenomenon that is happening, and it's a reaction of this situation of the globalization.
With independentism, you can clearly see the tension that it creates, right? From the different sources of power, the tension that it creates at the local, national levels, right? Not only here, but anywhere where fragmentation starts, right? Independentism is a way of fragmentation, and it's I don't want to say it's funny, but it's curious that in Europe, right, that has done so many efforts for becoming one single space in many ways, there is always a countercurrent. Every time you see a current, you see a countercurrent, right? And it's because of the specific needs of the different places. So it does connect, yeah.
Deglobalization is right now it's kind of propagated by the right ideologies. Am I right?
It's a phenomenon.
But I feel like it's also a very left ideology to have a local.
Sorry?
It's also a left ideology to make everything local, like not to have any connections outside the country. What's your opinion? And that's I'm just like. Yeah, I'm just like, what's your opinion? Like, do you think we are kind of moving towards very close community? Like, we had a lot of communists or left popular parties and like, who are trying to make everything local and not import or export, and they just want everything from that country to. Do you think this can reach again to that point?
And clearly, you're saying that that we are going to the other extreme now, and the point of going to the other extreme, you're saying that what is your point? Sorry to.
I was saying like where I see deglobalization like becoming everything local.
Correct.
And this has happened before when there was huge.
Not necessarily. Not only. I mean, it's not one thing or the other. There is this simultaneous flow of things happening. So that's what happens with postmodernity, right? A lot of flows are converging, and they are, creating another flows. So it's not just one thing, but a lot of things converging and clashing and becoming one thing. So some of the things we have presented, we tried to put them in a way so you could see different directions, and actually that's the interesting part of it. See the many options that come afloat from the consequences of globalization, positive and negative. Also, positive and negative is relative, right? If I'm the investor, like the investor that was speaking in the video, I can have one point of view, and if I am Bello, I have another completely. So, yeah, I wouldn't say it's just one thing happening, but lots of things happening, and then there are many currents. After Bauman, we don't have just one reality at all.
I just want to add, like, there's a book called The Divide, written by a person, an anthropologist by name Jason or something. It's very interesting. He talks about inequality which happened to the global south and global north, and he talks about the solution. It's interesting. I'm just like putting it out there.
Great.
I was thinking about the deglobalization, like the anthropologist. He said that the deglobalization is about people and focusing on people and like open minding and like we see a lot of movements. There's something. I'm from Brazil, and last elections there was a president who was elected in the and in Brazil and in many other countries, and I was just thinking like it seems like there are two different directions. Like I thought that the trend was that everyone's gonna be open-minded and tolerant and this kind of thing, and then people vote on right governments that are so I don't yeah so and this is a paradox, no?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And trends have this. I mean, every current, every social agreement has other agreements or other amount of people, communities that oppose. And that's interesting because that's how we see the reaction in society. So there is not one, that's why we don't study one trend, right? But we have lots of trends that cross and they overlap and they are there. So many of them even clash. And that's why complexity, analyzing complexity is important. If we had one trend and everybody follows that trend, I don't know if that would be even desirable, not everybody following the same thing. But complexity increases more and more, and also contradiction increases more and more. And what you say is completely true. We have this moment, and a lot of places in the world, we're choosing the apparently wrong people, right? So why? Yeah. We're humans.
The last one.
Last question. Yeah. We have 7.
We're saying that deglobalization means economy needs to focus on people instead of capital. What should the user concern about? Because we usually follow brand recognition and loyalties to certain products we consume. What should the user switch to in deglobalization? And what motivations should we try to fulfill in that context? I don't know if I explained myself.
Referring to the idea to appeal as brands to consumers' values, to consumers' lifestyle that are more close to this kind of paradigm. So, as we are seeing with brands, that brands are now talking about purpose. Now, brands are empathizing with engaging with consumers in terms of fighting for the same or fighting for the same fights. So, in that sense, a way that the brand can follow that part of the globalization is by entering more in the user consumer life and emphasizing with his her values, and in that sense being more a partner, a companion than an enemy. Is it what you were referring
yeah.
more, Sorot?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay.
Are you asking what should people do?
Basically, what routes should brands take to educate the way their consumers consume their products? I don't know how to say it.
That is also a difficult situation for brands, because brands and companies have been working in one system and in one way for many years, and they have been thinking the world and the market from one perspective. Innovation has a lot to do with this, and some brands are change and mutate into changing themselves first and then trying to engage with the new generations like you, because they know you think in a different way, but others don't. So some brands are actually very conservative and are very, linear, and they are oriented like that. Others are not. I guess that and reality is showing that the new generations will also choose who they want to talk to and who they want to engage with and what they want to consume. And more, you guys are doing it in every single thing you do in your life. The restaurant you go, the things you buy, the things you don't buy, the brands you adopt or not. So very slowly, I think that's a process of filtering that may take I don't know, probably a long time, right? But that process has started, and it will start, I guess, going deeper with the new generations, right? So because you have a different mindset and you are all aware of many things, and the information that you receive is overwhelming in that sense. It's like somehow bouncing in your brains about sustainability and responsibility and all these kind of things that we have, like millions of people thinking about this and choosing brands and doing things. So maybe more and more the consumer becomes more wise in their elections and the ways they support this or that company or this or that politician, right? This is an interesting moment because there is an overlap of ways of thinking and an overlap of generations, where there are some that go in that direction, others in the other, and we're looking at it. So that's why it is so confusing. Is it? Okay, good. So coffee, everyone. Then we will go to 2:15, and we'll start with the toolkits.